So Vance can say it as much as he wants. I think it's a way of distracting from the fact that, there is broad bipartisan concern in the US about healthcare. So to sort of distract from that, he can point towards illegal immigration and say that that's what it's all about, when really it's about healthcare, which is something that's of great concern to large swathes of the population.
The last government shutdown was in Donald Trump's first term. A standoff in 2018 resulted in a 34-day shutdown, the longest in the modern era. So he is, despite his protestations there back in 2011, a bit of an advocate of them. This is turning into a big blame game because, politics plays a part in this. It's not just is there enough money and is it being appropriated in the right way? Politics is interfering here, isn't it, Harriet?
Yes, very much so. And both sides are blaming the other. There was two separate votes on this today in the Senate. Both of them failed to pass, which means the shutdown continues. Kathy Hochul, who's the governor of New York, she held a press conference this afternoon in front of the Statue of Liberty because she says that New York State will not pay for the Statue of Liberty to remain lit at night. It's a national park, so the Statue of Liberty will go dark in several days' time unless an agreement is reached. So I think both sides are very much dug in. It doesn't seem like anyone is yet prepared to give an inch, and it's difficult to know how long this is going to go on for.
Have you seen the White House website? It has a timer on there. I'm just looking at it again now. It appears that the timer's gone to the top of the page. But when I looked earlier, Harriet, the timer, this sort of ticking timer of how long, well, it says Democrats have shut down the government, even though it is a two-way thing. 15 hours, 40 minutes and 4 seconds. There is a live ticker. A live time ticker on the White House website. Earlier, it was dominating the whole of the front page.
Yes, they're very adamant that everyone must decide that this is the Democrats who are doing this rather than the Republicans failing to negotiate with the Democrats, which of course is how Chuck Schumer, the Senate leader, and his allies would see it. There's been some mischief making as well with the federal employees who have been furloughed. Some of them have set their out of office replies to say that this is the fault of the Democrats, which of course, as civil servants, they shouldn't be told to do that. But it is, as you said, very political. And it's hard to see how this is going to be resolved quickly. They're all pretty dug in.
Yeah, and talking about it being resolved quickly, I was reading a little bit earlier on that the House will return to Washington next week. That's what the Speaker, Mike Johnson, announced. So does that mean that this won't be discussed again in the House, well, until next week?
Not in the House, no. I mean, it's the Senate that needs to vote on this to get it passed, and they are entrenched. It seems like there's very little movement there, and it's going to start to be felt more and more. These federal workers, 750,000 of them are not at work. So, the essential services are carrying on. So things like the air traffic controllers, the people checking you through the airports, that's happening, but there are fewer of them. So you can imagine that there will be queues starting to mount. Not too bad today, apparently, but that's something to watch. Things like the Postal Service, it'll keep operating, but it will get more and more burdened and just sort of slowly grind down, I think. So pressure is going to mount on the politicians, and that might actually begin to change some minds and give some urgency to trying to seek an agreement on this.
Have you seen any effect personally, Harriet? You're based over there in the US. Are you worried about anything in particular, particularly if this drags on?
I'm quite lucky, Kate, because I'm in New York rather than DC. So in New York, far fewer of the people in the city are federally employed, whereas in DC and the surrounding areas, of course, it's a large concentration of people who work for the federal government. New York is pretty much ticking along as usual. But if I was planning a holiday to a national park, I mean, I wish I was going there soon, but you might find things as the weeks drag on being being different there. They are going to have less staff, and certain sites may be closed. So that will be felt for sure.
Look, healthcare has been a big issue surrounding this government shutdown. It is what the Democrats are arguing for, essentially. They want an extension of subsidies that limit the cost of health insurance under the Affordable Care Act. They're set to expire. That is a rollback of the Medicaid cuts made in Trump's One Big Beautiful Bill Act. And they want the restoration of funding to public media that was cut during that big package as well. You know, there are various media outlets over there that are not able to operate at the moment. So health insurance, media, an issue here. Here's JD Vance speaking on Fox News explaining how the Trump administration has cut healthcare costs.
Yeah, so this is a Democrat talking point. They say we're not actually trying to give healthcare benefits to illegal aliens, and here's why it's not true. There are two Biden-era programs that explicitly gave the taxpayer healthcare money to illegal aliens that we turned off when President Trump took over in January. Program number one is there's a lot of emergency healthcare at hospitals that are provided to illegal aliens. That was funded by the federal government. We turned off that funding because, of course, we want American citizens to benefit from those hospital services, not to be taxed and then to have those hospital services go to illegal aliens.
Well, this was Chuck Schumer, the Senate Minority Leader's response to that.
The federal government, by law that we passed, does not fund health insurance for undocumented immigrants in Medicaid, period, nor the ACA, nor Medicare. Undocumented immigrants do not get federal health insurance premiums, period. Period. They're lying.
Yeah, I mean, you know, a war of words, a war of optics here. How is it that JD Vance is and we heard Caroline Levitt use this as well earlier, this argument. How are they able to sort of get away with this? It's factually untrue.
Well, I mean,
I know this is a big question. This is a common theme, isn't it, Harriet? But I mean, this is serious stuff, right?
Sure. I mean, next you'll be asking me, Kate, how the president gets away with saying things that are not true. They get away with saying it because they know that it resonates with voters. What is much less popular for Republicans to say is that they want to put up premiums for people's health insurance and to make Medicare and Medicaid harder for people to access, because that's something that really does worry a lot of Americans. Americans are generally supportive of the idea that if you are here in the country illegally, you shouldn't have access to healthcare benefits. But as Chuck Schumer says, that's actually not the case. So Vance can say it as much as he wants. I think it's a way of distracting from the fact that, you know, there is broad bipartisan concern in the US about healthcare. So to sort of distract from that, he can point towards illegal immigration and say that that's what it's all about, when really it's about healthcare, which is something that's of great concern to large swathes of the population.
All right. OK, well, let's move on from the shutdown. This one's likely to continue apace over the next days, possibly weeks. No end in sight at the moment. Let's talk about protesters who've threatened legal action after Florida officials secretly transferred land from a state college to be used for Donald Trump's presidential library, next to a historic landmark that celebrates Miami's immigrant culture. A prime waterfront location valued at more than $300 million belonged until last week to Miami-Dade College, whose trustees voted to donate it to the state without public consultation. I'd imagine, well, you can tell me how the people of Florida have reacted to this, Harriet.
Yeah, there's quite a lot of anger at this. There are people out there with placards saying that they shouldn't be giving this land to Trump for his library. And indeed, it is a gift. It's a $300 million gift to Trump. Interestingly, on this 2.6-acre site, it says that you will have to have the presidential library, but there isn't a lot of restrictions beyond that. So there's concern that the Trump family could then use it to build hotels or resorts or something along those lines. There's a lot of worry about it. And also, as you said, the location is very important. It's a waterfront location, so prime Miami real estate, but also it's right next to the Freedom Tower, which is a building where Cubans who were fleeing Fidel Castro's regime, they were processed and they were given their documentation inside the Freedom Tower. So the Freedom Tower is quite symbolic to Miami as a celebration of American values. And some people in that city are none too happy that Donald Trump will be right next door.
And let's turn our attention to IKEA, or IKEA, as they like to say in Sweden. They've confirmed their plans to expand their business into the US. That they remain unchanged. This is despite Donald Trump's decision to put tariffs on furniture. The Swedish retailer has acquired a property in Manhattan for $213 million, where it plans to open a new store as part of the group's $2.2 billion expansion plan for the United States. The US will impose levies of 10% on softwood timber and lumber and 25% on kitchen cabinets and upholstered wooden furniture from October the 14th. This is an interesting move from IKEA. Maybe their prices are so cheap that they're confident the Americans, with inflation, will buy it, even with tariffs on top, Harriet.
Yeah, it's a really interesting one, isn't it? Because I was looking at where IKEA goods are produced, and they're certainly not produced in the United States. A lot, of course, in China, in Poland, and so they are imported. There's no word yet on whether IKEA is planning to also open up some manufacturing sites to sort of keep on the side of Trump with his Made in America push. But the leaders of IKEA, they are unfazed by the tariffs, it seems, whether they think that ultimately they'll be negotiated down and they think that they can get away with it and this is a long-term proposal for them, or whether, as you say, they feel that their price points are so amenable to the American consumer ready that they will actually be able to withstand the tariffs. But yes, full steam ahead. 3 new stores in Texas by the end of this year, and then several more next year as well.
Wow. Very quick other bit of US business related news. Josie Enser from The Times is reporting that Lidl has taken America by storm, even calling it the new Trader Joe's. Have you come across a little Lidl?
Gosh, I wish there was one near me where I live. No, I mean, Trader Joe's has really got the monopoly on good value groceries here in the US. Certainly cheaper than Whole Foods, the big rival. So it'll be interesting to see what they do.
Yes, certainly. Could there be? And that's interesting because these are not discount brands, but these are value brands, aren't they? IKEA and Lidl. And with inflation and just generally how much things cost in the States, we think we've got it bad here. But you know, a supermarket shop there can run to several $100s for a family, can't it? It'd be really interesting to see how those businesses do. Look, thank you so much, US reporter Harriet Alexander. Good to speak to you.